Medical disclaimer. The content of this video is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and always get proper treatment for serious medical conditions. Legal disclaimer. Use only legal measures to combat the virus and cooperate with government officials, first responders and healthcare workers to make the coronavirus a thing of the past and create a perfect society ASAP. Use common sense, logic and help your fellow humans if necessary, also to lower the risk of being vaccinated mandatorily ourselves and to end the pandemic as soon as possible. The objective of my videos is not to slander people nor to incite or trigger people, but to do the opposite, exposing it when people are wrongly accused and to create universal peace, world peace or just peace on earth. People are innocent till proven guilty in the court of law. One who knows of evidence must testify, not to convict anyone without a fair trial.
I've got this feeling, no one is watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa.
Welcome, greetings superior beings, greetings supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. Welcome on Perfect Society. I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and no one is watching me according to the live dashboard. But okay. This is medical
the
disclaimer.
broadcast Captain
The
America
content
movie
of this video is not
2011.
intended to be sorry about that. That happens sometimes. My new disclaimer. This is the video Captain America movie of 2011. Shows virus and corona bottle predictive programming, the First Avenger. So that's Captain America, the First Avenger. And there are only two options. Either the people that made this knew that it was going to happen, it's predictive programming, or they were controlled with synthetic telepathy by a time-traveling neural network that was either trying to warn the people or to program the people. Or other people might think it's just a coincidence. Event 201, the pandemic exercise. It was about coronavirus, and because there are more than 1 million viruses, chances of them using the correct virus in their Event 201 pandemic exercise are less than 1 in 1 million. So that's another reason many people think this is all going according to plan. Or as some say, it's all staged, and it's part of a population reduction agenda. And I've also covered on my channel a cartoon and a Twitterer, @noso predicted Kobe would die in a helicopter crash in 2012. You could argue it's not really a prediction when the person makes a cartoon and we see that chopper crashed with Kobe Bryant, etc. And a couple of years later, I think it was, the helicopter really crashed. So there are people making correct predictions. Also in The Simpsons, for example, we've seen some correct predictions. But this is really in the movie, in The Simpsons cartoon, I mean. And some people think that it's made by a Freemason, and those are the secret societies Kennedy warned us about, these Jesuits, Masons, Bilderberg, Skull and Bones, Knight of Malta. Trump is a Knight of Malta, according to sources online. So he's a Freemason as well, Luciferian, according to online sources. And this is at, let's see, Shift tab, 1 hour 52 minutes 58 seconds. So on the other billboards we see Sister Act, Race Thy or something, and tennis, Broadway, is this Phantom of the Opera or something, porcelain face programming, and some other, this one's a bit hard to read, but it looks a bit like the French Revolution painting. So people can check that out. That's really Captain America the First Avenger 1080p of 1981. And there is another interesting prediction that was made by people, which I'm also going into in this broadcast. A book of 1981 about Wuhan 400. They call the stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed at their rDNA labs outside of the city of Wuhan, and it was the 400th viable strain of man-made microorganisms created at that research center. We read in the #1 best-selling author book, Dean Koontz, The Eyes of Darkness, according to the New York Times. And then we can read online all these fact-check websites, etc. So I verified it. It's a real book, basically. You can also buy it online, I think. $3.99 ebook. And there's also a wiki article about it. The Eyes of Darkness is a thriller novel by American writer Dean Koontz, released in 1981. The book focuses on a mother who sets out on a quest to find out if her son truly did die 1 year ago or if he is still alive. Television adaptation, according to author Dean Koontz, in the afterword of 2008 paperback reissue, television producer Lee Rich purchased the rights for the book along with The Face of Fear, Darkfall, and a fourth unnamed novel for a television series based on Koontz's work. The Eyes of Darkness was assigned to Ann Powell and Rose Schacht or Schachi Skagt, I think they pronounce it. Anyway, co-writers of Drug Wars, the Camarena story. But they could never deliver an acceptable script. Ultimately, The Face of Fear is the only book of the four made into a television movie. So basically what happened, I was just searching on coronavirus predictive programming, and then I also found other predictive programming. And perhaps there are other things, perhaps they've been trying to warn us, or perhaps it's really predictive programming, subconscious programming, so that we respond in a certain manner, also to desensitize people. But the main programming is done by the mainstream media, of course. So we can read some articles about this. This is Gematria Effect.news. And well, that's so it was from the video, this video I watched, Alert Floyd Riots All by Design, NWO, quote, Order Out of Chaos, unquote, Kabul's Manufactured Race War. This is the YouTube video number, so people can check that on YouTube. So here this billboard shows the virus, the other billboard shows the Corona beer bottle with the lemon inside at the top. Okay, so let's read this. So it's just to show that it's the real book and the real movie. But people can Google it for themselves. Okay, we can read it now.
Captain America, 2011 film, appears to show coronavirus predictive programming. Coronavirus entertainment predictive programming. This scene is from Captain America, the First Avenger, 2011. Do you see the Corona beer and the object that looks much like the coronavirus graphic in the background? Keep in mind this movie came out in 2011, the same year as Contagion, and of course, 11 is the master number that relates to the master plan, coronavirus, that we are now living out. The film released July 19th. And in leap years, that is the 201st day of the year. Once again, Event 201 was the coronavirus outbreak simulation, hosted in New York, the same place this movie shot is located.
So we see Captain America the First Avenger, release date July 19th, 2011, USA.
The First Avenger equals 78, 84, Jesuit equals 84, 78, Wuhan coronavirus equals 78, New York equals 78, 2020, the year of the virus, is a leap year. And don't forget the show Contagion concluded on July 19, 2016, a leap year. Read about 201 and the coronavirus illustration by the CDC. https://gemetrifect.news/Alyssa Eckert Dan Higgins. The CDC illustrators of the viral coronavirus image more 56 and 201 gemetrifect.news.
I don't know if they're the only ones that reported about it with a website, but there is that YouTube video that I just saw, that I just showed. And no, Dean Koontz' 1981 novel did not, quote, predict, unquote, coronavirus emerging from China. So let's read this to debunk it all. And I'm also wondering, is it on page 333? Here this looks like 333 of the book. In the digital version, see if I can find it. It's on page 181 of 188 pages. And on the other pictures, it seems to be kind of cut off at the top and at the bottom. So on the original one there's also a roll of aluminum foil or something similar. Can't really decipher what this could be. If there's someone who knows, let me know in the comments if you know what it is. So that's the other topic. Let's go back to the article at hand.
No, Dean Koontz's 1981 novel did not predict coronavirus emerging from China. Pooja Chaudhary, 14th of March 2020. Avatar Pooja Chaudhary, Pooja_Chaudhary 1.1K shares Facebook. Twitter. Is coronavirus a biological weapon developed by the Chinese called Wuhan-400? This book was published in 1981. Do read the excerpt. Reads a tweet by Congress MP Manish Tiwari. The book Tiwari refers to as Dean Koontz's The Eyes of Darkness. The word Wuhan 400, developed by a Chinese scientist, Features in the Mart excerpt. Manishtuwari. At Manishtuwari is coronavirus, a biological weapon developed by the Chinese called Wuhan-400. This book was published in 1981. Do read the excerpt. View image on Twitter. View image on Twitter. 872-1202, February 16, 2020. Twitter adds information and privacy. 500 people are talking about this. That Koontz's novel released in 1981 predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus, COVID-19, as a biological weapon developed by China is a claim circulating worldwide in different languages. Below is a tweet in Indonesian. Ridwan Hanifat Ridwan book The Eyes of Darkness to A90 and Udon Gemungan 2028 A virus yang menairing pernafasan. Terus nama biological weaponia Wuhan 400. View image on Twitter. View image on Twitter. View image on Twitter. 2338 1031, February 18, 2020. Twitter adds information and privacy. 1,575 people are talking about this. The claim has also been shared in Spanish. A handy text claims that a book in China predicted that the country developed the coronavirus to eradicate poverty. Comma reads the complete message. Fact check. The novel describes Wuhan 400 as follows. 1. Developed by a Chinese scientist in an rDNA laboratory outside the city of Wuhan. 2. Wuhan 400 affects only human beings. No other living creature can carry it. 3. The weapon can't survive outside a living human body for more than a minute. The available information about COVID-19 suggests that these predictions are not aligned with a recent outbreak. Coronavirus is not man-made. Animals can also host the virus. Bogus claims about COVID being engineered as.
So I've covered that new study about RATG13 that according to the some scientists, proves that it cannot be of natural origin. Let's see if I can find the correct illustration with it while it keeps on reading.
A biological weapon has already been debunked by multiple platforms, both national and international. A statement by public health scientists published in The Lancet says, "We stand together to strongly condemn conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin." Scientists from multiple countries have published and analyzed genomes of the causative agent, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2. And they overwhelmingly conclude that this coronavirus originated in wildlife, as have.
So they have not seen the new study that's based on the old study that was removed to be revised about these HIV inserts, etc. And many senators in the US Congress also jumped on that. But in reality that may be a fake publication, a dead-end street as they say, to hide that it's a designer virus. Of course, if it is one, then they'd also use propaganda techniques to hide that it is one. So I'm not claiming that it is or is not one. And I've already made clear that chances are less than 1 in a million that they'd use coronavirus for their Event 201 pandemic exercise. So RATG13, the undeniable evidence that the Wuhan coronavirus is man-made, gnews.org/192144. Then you can check it for yourselves. The RATG13 bat virus remains the closest to SARS-CoV-2 across the genome, nature.com. And hashtag coronavirus update, hashtag COVID-19 finally solved it, how someone made COVID-19. They gene edited a 2013 bat coronavirus, RATG13 from Yunnan. to place a furan cleavage site in its quote spike unquote protein. No other amino acid changes nearby, just a precise change in one place, CRISPR-Cas9. So people can read about it on Twitter and other websites. People can Google RATG13. And I think it's wrong to assume that it's not a designer virus when all these scientists agree with what they read on that website. I've covered it in my previous broadcasts, and it's best not to cover it without a disclaimer, a medical and legal disclaimer.
So many other emerging pathogens. According to an Al Jazeera report, Chinese health authorities are still trying to determine the origin of the virus, which they say likely came from a seafood market in Wuhan where wildlife was also traded illegally. This also debunks the second prediction that the novel coronavirus only lives in humans. The report adds that Chinese researchers said the virus could have spread from an infected animal species to humans through illegally trafficked pangolins, which are prized in Asia for food and medicine. Scientists have pointed to either bats or snakes as the source of the virus. The World Health Organization, WHO, states, coronaviruses, CoV, are a large family of viruses that cause illness ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases such as MERS-CoV and SARS-CoV. A novel coronavirus, nCoV, and its outbreak COVID-19 has not been previously identified in humans. Coronaviruses are zoonotic, meaning they are transmitted between animals and people. Detailed investigations found that SARS-CoV was transmitted from civet cats to humans and MERS-CoV from dromedary camels to humans. Several known coronaviruses.
Another article that I might take a look at claims that it's a partly false claim. A 1981 book predicted the coronavirus 2019 outbreak. Reuters, it's even on Reuters.com. So we can read that after this one. Very interesting stuff, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Are circulating in animals that have not yet infected humans, the WHO adds. Scientific study suggests that the novel coronavirus can survive outside the human body for hours, or even days. An earlier fact check by Alt News science editor Dr. Sumaya Sheikh and pharmacovigilance physician Dr. Sharfritz cited a new preprint study, Dormelin et al. 2020, conducted by American scientists. According to the study, COVID-19 can live in the air for several hours and on some surfaces for as long as 2-3 days. The study also suggests that the virus can spread through the air as well as from touching things that were contaminated by those who are infected as well as through direct human contact. They tested the virus by spraying into the air by a nebulizer mimicking the coughing action of an infected person. They learned that could be detected up to 3 hours later in the air, up to 4 hours on copper surfaces, up to 24 hours on cardboard and up to 2-3 days on plastic and stainless steel surfaces. 1981 edition of Koontz's novel has no references to Wuhan. A search inside the 1981 edition of The Eyes of Darkness on Google Books reveals that the fictional novel termed the biological weapon Gorky 400. According to an article in South China Morning Post, Koontz had the virus originating in Russia. The book appears to have been rewritten after the collapse of the Soviet Union meant the country was no longer seen as a communist bogeyman, says the article, which adds that the first edition of the book was written under Koontz's pseudonym Lee Nichols. The 1981 version on Google Books also recognizes the author as Lee Nichols. The initial copy concerns a virus called Gorky 400 that was created by the Russians and emerged from the city of Gorky. South China Morning Post also provided an excerpt from the first edition where Gorky 400 and Russia are featured. The change to Wuhan came when the book was released in hardback under Koontz's own name in 1989. The year of the book's re-release is significant. 1989 marked the end of the Cold War. and with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the country was no longer communist. An American author pointing.
So that means that it was renamed Wuhan 400 in 1989 already. Okay. And why would they rename it? Does Gorky sound too suspicious? Gorky Park or something?
The fictional finger of blame at Russia would not have gone down well in that climate, so the Eyes of Darkness needed a new villain, continues the article. Therefore, social media claims about the novel coronavirus are bogus from all counts. Neither did Dean Koontz author a novel in 1981 concerning a bioweapon that originated in Wuhan, nor did he predict the COVID-19 outbreak. Furthermore, Gorky 400, later renamed to Wuhan 400, does not mirror the novel coronavirus.
I think that's totally effing weird that they renamed it to Wuhan 400 in a later version of the same book. And before that it was called Gorky 400. Partly false claim, a 1981 book predicted the coronavirus 2019 outbreak. Reuters.com. Verdict, partly false.
Partly false claim. A 1981 book predicted the coronavirus 2019 outbreak. 7 minutes read. A theory widely shared on social media claims that American author Dean Koontz predicted the 2019 to 2020 coronavirus outbreak in 1981.
So this article was published February 28th, 2020, and now it's of course the 14th of June. And the other one, March 14th, 2020, and Reuters February 28th, 2020. So Reuters was first.
Posts featuring the cover of the Eyes of Darkness book and a page in which Koontz allegedly describes the coronavirus in his novel have at least 39,000 shares, examples here, and at least 2,000 retweets on Twitter, examples here. As of February 27, 2020. Most of the claims circulating on social media show the book's cover and a page in the book mentioning a virus called Wuhan 400. The widely circulated photo of Koontz's book page includes some highlighted text reading, "They call the stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed at their rDNA labs outside of the city of Wuhan, and it was the 400th viable strain of man-made microorganisms created at that research center." Some claims circulating also include an additional page that mentions the year 2020 and the outbreak of a severe pneumonia-like illness. This is partly false. While it is true that Koontz wrote about a fictional virus in his novel and that its name Wuhan 400 refers the Chinese city in which the 2019 coronavirus outbreak, COVID-19, actually started, the illness in his book doesn't share more traits with COVID-19. In his novel, Koontz described Wuhan 400 as China's most important and dangerous, new biological weapon in a decade. He also wrote it was developed by labs outside of the city of Wuhan. There is no proof that the new coronavirus was created in a lab. The virus is believed to have originated late last year in a food market in Wuhan that was illegally selling wildlife.
Many people claim CCP, Chinese Communist Party, CCP, And they have close ties with the CDC, the people doing the population reduction, Agenda 21, etc. So it may very well have been a setup to make it look like it's from China. You also have the Resident Evil movies. I already covered it in previous broadcasts as well. Let's see if I can find it. It was about Ruilan, Bao, Husan, etc. Let's go to desktop. I have to find another image. We can first continue reading.
See here. Health experts think it may have originated in bats and then passed to humans, possibly via another species. Reuters looked at further references of Wuhan 400 in Koontz's book. The symptoms and behavior of Koontz's Wuhan 400 are very different to COVID-19. In the novel, the virus has an incubation period of only 4 hours. COVID-19's incubation period is between 1-14 days, according to World Health Organization. Here, the most common incubation time is around 5 days. Koontz also describes Wuhan 400 as a disease with a kill rate of 100%. Once infected, no one lives more than 24 hours, most die in 12, he writes. COVID-19's death rate is far from this, according to the WHO. The case fatality rate is between 2% and 4% in Wuhan and 0.7% outside Wuhan, here. The symptoms described by Koontz are different to COVID-19. In his novel, Wuhan 400 causes the secretion of a toxin that literally eats away brain tissue, causing loss of control of bodily function. The victim simply ceases to have a pulse, functioning organs, or any urge to breathe, writes Koontz. Meanwhile, COVID-19 infections have a wide range of symptoms, including fever, coughing, shortness of breath and breathing difficulties. Mild cases can cause cold-like symptoms, while severe cases can cause pneumonia, severe acute respiratory illness, kidney failure and death. In the novel, Wuhan 400 is described to be infinitely worse than Ebola, EVD, but COVID-19 is less threatening than EVD. According to the WHO, the average EVD case fatality rate is around 50%, while case fatality rates have varied from 25% to 90% in past outbreaks. See here. The new coronavirus death rate is between 2% and 4% in Wuhan and 0.7% outside Wuhan. It is worth noting that in the first edition.
Well, what I found really shocking is that there are 25 times more confirmed coronavirus cases in the USA than in China, and also 25 times more confirmed coronavirus deaths, though China has 4 times more people living in it than the USA has. And it was yesterday. Oh no, the 14th. It was today, basically. Worldometers.info, so you can check that for yourselves. And about 0.005% of the total global population has died from coronavirus. So many people claim it's not a pandemic in reality. They're not just exaggerating, it's coronavirus hysteria of the government. And with a purpose, of course, to create a crisis big enough, a recession big enough, to impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government and reduce the global population with vaccines, electroporation vaccines. And what does that mean? Electroporation, well, the word pores is in electroporation. It makes pores in the cells so that the virus and other things that are in the vaccine can enter the cells directly. And it's done with 2 or 3 needles, depends. And they put an electric current through these needles to make the pores in the cells, they claim temporarily. So that's the electroporation DNA vaccine. And I've warned about Bill Gates, so if others, they think that Bill and Melinda Gates should be arrested or at least investigated. And I've covered it in my previous broadcast why. So I'm not going to do that in this one. Let's see if I can find that image. This one. Okay. It's gonna have to go to 7 billion people. And that's in a video on Gates' YouTube channel. You can see, and I've used a sample in previous broadcasts in which you can actually hear him say that. So why 7 billion people and not 7.78 billion people when we have 7.8 billion people on our planet? Well, people can speculate about that, of course. And the other thing was 5G. That also increases cell membrane permeability, according to the scientists that have signed a petition against the 5G rollout. And it also affects the production of peripheral T lymphocytes. In other words, it also affects people's immune system, according to the studies that I have read and covered in previous broadcasts. So basically they both do the same thing. They open up these cells to be able to infect them with the, according to some designer virus, which cannot be of natural origin. And in the study about RATG, you can read why RATG 13. So yeah, people can Google everything nowadays, isn't it wonderful?
Of the Eyes of Darkness in 1981, the fictional virus was not named after the Chinese city, but after a Russian locality named Gorky 400. In the original version of the novel, the virus was developed outside of Gorky and it was meant to be the Soviets' most important, dangerous new biological weapon in the decade. This is confirmed by a Google book search of the word Wuhan in the 1981 edition. Here, in this edition, Wuhan 400 brings no results. According to the South China Morning Post, the name of the virus was changed on the re-release of the book in 1989, toward the end of the Cold War. Their article here includes photographs of the previous edition that references Gorky 400. In this edition, Koontz also published his novel under his real name instead of using his pseudonym Lee Nichols. Reuters tried to contact the author and the publisher but is yet to receive an answer. Some of the posts on social media also share a third image of a book page without any attribution, here, wrongly suggesting it is part of the same book. This page reads, "In around 2020 a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments." This page does not belong to the Eyes of Darkness. It comes from the 2008 book End of Days, Predictions and Prophecies About the End of the World by Sylvia Browne, an American author who claimed to be a psychic. See the page here. This claim is therefore partly false. Dean Koontz did write about a fictional virus called Wuhan 400 in the 1989 re-release of his 1981 novel The Eyes of Darkness, but symptoms and effects of the disease did not match the official description of COVID-19. The additional page present in some claims suggesting an outbreak around 2020 is from a different book. Verdict: partly false. Dean Koontz wrote about a fictional virus called Wuhan 400, but its description has nothing to do with the new coronavirus.
So again, what are the chances some people think that these things cannot be a coincidence? And now I'm on another page and they don't let me scroll. They've been doing these types of things for a couple of hours now. Now it does scroll, but just a few seconds ago it didn't scroll. And actually, it's according to the new study, it's developed by Shi and not by Li.
What is Wuhan 400 bioweapon? Image credit, Twitter/@DarrenPlymouth, Coronavirus Conspiracies Wuhan 400. It was around then that a Chinese scientist named Li CHEN defected to the United States, carrying a diskette record of China's most important and dangerous new biological weapon in a decade. They call the stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed at their rDNA labs outside of the city of Wuhan, and it was the 400th viable strain of man-made microorganisms created at that research center. An excerpt from the novel, The Eyes of Darkness. A local hero, Dr. Li. Since the coronavirus outbreak in December 2019, there are now 73,335 confirmed cases and 1873 deaths. On the 30th of December, a Chinese ophthalmologist, Dr. Li Wenliang, warned his fellow medics of SARS-like infections in Wuhan but was told by police to stop spreading rumors. He was forced to acknowledge he made false statements on the dangerous situation, and unfortunately, he later succumbed to the disease and died a hero. His death sparked anger in many Chinese who demanded to know why he was silenced. Image video, Wuhan 400, read by J. Peterman. Greater than click here to play. The Eyes of Darkness. One of the top 1,000 Amazon bestsellers in conspiracy thrillers is the novel The Eyes of Darkness, published in 1981 by Dean Koontz. An excerpt from the chapter 39 of the book.
So if it's a bioweapon, engineered virus, a black operation of the government, perhaps part of Project Teardrop for example, then they'd have to deny its existence. They don't want to get caught, of course, that's one. And they would also make a fake study that doesn't give any conclusive evidence, though it is a designer virus, to cover up any future studies with Google, so that people don't find them anymore. It's all psychological warfare and real warfare. Population reduction, you could argue, is real warfare, not info war. Or was the other word they had? Info nor spiritual war. Jesuits and Masons, real war to reduce the global population, not an info nor spiritual war. Jesuits are a military order leader. Their leader is Arturo Sosa, so that's not the Pope. So we're still reading the other thing. Shi Zhengli's role. So then we read this next. So they would benefit from these people that claim that it's not genetically engineered. And on the original page where you can find that study, was it G News or something like that? Let's see if it's still in the computer's memory. Yeah, there in the comments you can see that all these scientists all agree that this really is it, basically. And also with that book you see lots of people that try to deny it, but it is a major coincidence. So it is, I think, really special that they made a book about Wuhan 400, etc. And that they also renamed it from Gorky to Wuhan 400. Why would they do such a thing? So the point is, oh yeah, I wanted to show all these people that deny it, basically, that the book predicted this bioweapon. Well, that's that article we read, for example. This one, no, the Koontz 1981 novel. And then I add fact check. So Reuters claims it's partly false, they don't claim it's totally false. Fact check, usatoday.com 1981, Dean Koontz book didn't predict COVID-19. Well, why would they write an article about it then? Book of Mao didn't predict COVID-19. And that they do it to themselves, the Chinese people. And we need to leave out the Chinese Communist Party, because they've closed ties with the CDC. So they make a lot of money. Perhaps I should show Bill Gates' channel. That should be easy. Gates Notes, I think it is. And you can all subscribe, of course. And I can show you how you can be certain that you get a message in the notification area. That's this bell icon. Subscribed, and then you can click also on the channel itself, for example. And underneath videos you see the subscribe button that can be red when you're not subscribed yet. And then you can click on the bell next to it and make sure you click on all and not personalized or none. And then you'll get messages in the notification area. I have one new message: watch Jason Goodman live in 30 minutes Sunday with Charles Lawless in Seattle. I've covered the autonomous zone in Seattle and possible plans to create a civil war and declare martial law, and then all these executive orders come into effect. And it's the video The Race for COVID-19 Vaccine Explained. Perhaps it's in one of these videos. So then I can add the link in the description. And we're still reading, so let's continue reading.
Is given above. For those of you who have been following the coronavirus COVID-19, renamed from 2019 nCoV, reading the paragraph above in the novel will probably raise your hair or send shivers down your spine. How did the author come up with the name Li Chen, a Chinese scientist who appeared to be a traitor with important information on a bioweapon? Li Chen is a fictional character in the novel, but in the current coronavirus outbreak, Dr. Li Wenliang was a whistleblower with important information on the danger of SARS-like infections. Dr. Li Wenliang is an ophthalmologist, and for those who do not know, this means he specialized on treating disorders and diseases in the eyes. What is the title of the novel again? Right, The Eyes of Darkness. Coincidence? How about the coincidence that a bioweapon is called Wuhan 400 when there have been speculations on the possibility of a bioweapon conspiracy? How did Dean Koontz get the idea that Wuhan 400 be the name of the bioweapon, which strangely matched the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan? Is this a coincidence? Image: the most common Chinese surname in mainland China is Li, 7.9% of all names in one estimate. Obviously, Li Chen is not the same name as Li Wenliang. If the coronavirus outbreak is a planned bioterrorism, how could one predict that a doctor with the surname Li will become a whistleblower? This could be anyone. China has 686 cities and Wuhan is one of them. To name Wuhan by chance out of 686 cities is less than 0.15% probability. The novel also mentioned a research laboratory, but it is outside of Wuhan. Strangely, the Wuhan Institute of Virology is only about 20 kilometers away to the Hunan seafood market, which is the epicenter of the outbreak, and it is the only biosafety level 4 laboratory in China. Indeed, it seems rather strange that a bioweapon would carry the name Wuhan and simultaneously has a person named Li in a novel that matched reality in some ways almost 39 years later. Wait. 39 years after the novel was published, we have a coronavirus outbreak. The Wuhan 400 is mentioned in chapter 39 of the novel. Text mining to find something newsworthy? Occurrences of the word Wuhan in Google Books from 1800 to 2018. The y-axis is in percent. However, let's consider the written works that we have for the past 39 years. If one builds a text corpus from all of these written works and perform text mining to see any strange co-occurrences of keywords, for example Wuhan and virus, what is the probability of discovering something newsworthy? Maybe one will be able to find something worth speculating a conspiracy, but the novel is protected by copyright, so what are the chances it will be readily available as input for text mining?
So I have to insert the warning that people cannot produce these videos without a legal disclaimer, because then it would be considered triggering. So I keep clear that I'm not accusing anybody of anything without proper evidence. I'm just saying that this new information is available for you all, and also for the government and the police to research.
Who was the first person who reported the news of Dean Koontz predicted the viral outbreak in his novel, and how was it discovered? Did someone accidentally read about Wuhan 400 in his novel recently and decided to report it? Did someone run a text mining to search for Wuhan in historical text corpus to look for something newsworthy? Naysayers will say those who favor conspiracies just cannot accept coincidences that do occur, which they are right, but the probabilities of such events are small. A psychic who foretells the outbreak. Image: so far, there seems to be no comments from the 74 years old, Dean Koontz, on why he wrote that and what was his source of inspiration. Dean was born just before the end of the Second World War. He has written many New York Times bestsellers books. Good writers sometimes describe they have a flow when they write, and some have even described that what they pen down eventually become reality. There are also those who use psychedelics to enter altered consciousness state to open up the minds to receive visions. In Dean's creative writing process, could he have tapped into psychic ability to foretell the future? The information that was downloaded by him may not be very clear because the events he saw were almost 39 years in the future. Quantum entanglement. Image: before you think psychic ability is laughable, at least do some research on this topic, such as listening to the banned TED Talk by Russell Targ, a physicist who used to work for the CIA. According to Russell, it is possible for us to quiet our minds and describe the experience of something that happens at a distant place or in the future. This has been talked about by the Buddhists for thousands of years. Prefer a more scientific explanation? How about quantum entanglement that says any two particles in space-time are actually connected and have effects on each other even though they are far apart. If Dean indeed had a vision of the future at the time he wrote the novel, then this could explain the coincidence of someone named Li, the city Wuhan, a bioweapon, the eyes and the number 39. A planned conspiracy that was revealed to him is unlikely because he would have no idea that Li would become a hero.
I'm searching for an image, the time-traveling neural network image. And it might not be Project Looking Glass. They may come up with bogus projects, programs and operations that don't exist in reality to cover up the real ones. But okay, it's just neural network, so they look like closets basically. Let's see, it must be here somewhere. It will take a while. And people can also check the broadcast about Kobe Bryant. So it was predicted, you could argue, in two ways, though they were not predictions. They were not semi-prophecies or semi-predictions, you could argue, but not predictions in the sense of a person saying this and that will happen. They predicted it perhaps unknowingly. They just made a cartoon and then later it happened in reality. Or perhaps it's what they want us to believe, or something. Yes, I found it. The time-traveling neural network picture. Of course, their time-traveling neural network might not look exactly like this. So there are several so-called supercomputers. Some have marked them the Beast system we've heard about lately, 5G death towers, etc. So it's best not to listen to people that talk in the mainstream media if they don't have any scientific evidence, scientific studies, especially reproducible tests, to back up their claims. Then they are the fake news bringers. And, well, I know time travel is possible. I've had precognitive visions, so I'm 100% convinced. And I think it's done with time traveling neural network. So why deny the obvious, child? And that could mean that there are no, or that would mean, no, it could mean that there are no natural psychics that have precognitive visions. I am cleaning up my room, so it will take a while to put my books on the bed. I should have first started the other study, of course, so let's move to that immediately. And who knows who the neural network selects to have precognitive visions, you know? So I don't want to read the G News article, I've already covered that, but the new article on gmwatch.org. Okay then, let's do this.
Evidence that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is genetically engineered details. Published, May 12, 2020. Share scientist holding COVID-19 test tube. A scientist argues that the evidence for a natural origin for the virus is fabricated. Report, Claire Robinson. An anonymous scientist 1 has published a detailed article arguing that SARS-CoV-2, the virus causing the COVID-19 pandemic, is a genetically engineered lab creation. What's more, the author argues that the particular bat coronavirus from which SARS-CoV-2 is claimed to have naturally emerged, dubbed RAG13, is a fabrication. In other words, the author says the natural origin for the virus was made up in a desperate attempt to let those responsible for the lab escape off the hook. According to the author, the fabrication was perpetrated by Shi Zhengli, director of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, WIV, in China. The WIV is only a few kilometers from the Wuhan seafood and wildlife market that was initially blamed for the outbreak. Zhengli has been dubbed by the media the Bat Woman for her role in collecting bat viruses from the wild for her gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function research seeks to make viruses more virulent or more transmissible, for instance, making a virus airborne or better adapted to different host species. Such research is not necessarily intended for bioweapons development. It's supposedly intended to help develop vaccines and therapeutics for virus epidemics and for basic research on the behavior of viruses. But it's been fiercely criticized for decades by some scientists for posing huge risks to public health in return for little or no benefit. In fact, the author of the new article does suggest that SARS-CoV-2 was developed as a bioweapon, though he doesn't suggest that it was deliberately released as one. The new article, titled, RAG13, The Undeniable Evidence That the Wuhan Coronavirus is Man-Made, appears on the Nerd Has Power blog. The blog site doesn't identify the author, so we'll call him or her nerd, and assume he's male, for the purposes of this article. The article is technical in parts, but Nerd does his best to make it accessible to the layperson by explaining every step of his logic, at the same time as giving definitions of scientific terms. In our experience, he succeeds, though non-scientists may need to read the technical parts with close attention, possibly more than once. The new article brings solid scientific evidence to the row that is raging over the origin of SARS-CoV-2. Some scientists have said that the virus is the result of natural evolution in animal or human hosts. But others have said that while natural emergence is possible, it's also not possible to rule out a lab escape, either of a natural virus obtained from the wild for research, or even of a genetically engineered virus. As Nerd points out, all publications arguing for a natural origin for SARS-CoV-2 rely on a single piece of evidence: the sequence of a purported natural bat coronavirus named RAG13. RAG13 looks like a close cousin of SARS-CoV-2. The two are 96% identical throughout the whole sequence of the viral genome. If RAG13 is a natural virus, SARS-CoV-2 very likely also comes from nature and must share a recent common ancestor with RAG13. Indeed, it has been argued by those in support of the natural origin of SARS-CoV-2 that the virus arose by the mutation of RAG13 in animal and or human hosts. But there's one major problem with the natural origin theory. According to Nerd, the RAG13 virus isn't real. It doesn't exist as a life sample, only as a sequence of letters in a computer, which only in January this year, after the COVID-19 outbreak hit, was uploaded into a public database. Nerd believes that this sole evidence of its existence, its genetic sequence, was fabricated. And, he says, the major fabrication is Shi Zhengli. We summarize below Nerd's technical argument that SARS-CoV-2, as originally found in Wuhan, China, was genetically engineered. However, we strongly encourage readers to go to his full article, to look at the graphs that illustrate his argument, and to check out his linked sources. Nerd's argument is being taken seriously by many well-qualified commentators, both on Twitter and in the comments section of his original posting here. His updated post, which takes account of comments and corrections he's received from readers, is here. Summary of Nerd's argument that SARS-CoV-2 is genetically engineered. 1. Many mutations in natural evolution are single DNA or RNA nucleotide substitutions, that is, a change of a single base unit, nucleotide, in the order of the base units that constitutes the genetic material of the organism. Note, the genetic material of coronaviruses is RNA, not DNA. These random single nucleotide mutations within a protein coding region of the genetic material of an organism can have one of two outcomes. Either it can have no effect on the genetic code and thus no effect on the order of amino acids in the corresponding protein, this is known as a synonymous mutation, or the single nucleotide change can alter the genetic code, leading to a change in the amino acid sequence of the protein for which it encodes, conferring in turn new properties to the protein. This is known as a non-synonymous mutation. 2. There are strict rules that govern natural evolution through random single nucleotide mutation. In particular, typically the ratio between the number of synonymous mutations and that of non-synonymous mutations should be around 5:1, that is, 5 times more synonymous mutations than non-synonymous arise through this process. In other words, there should be an amino acid change with every 6th single nucleotide mutation. 3. If we consider the natural rates and patterns of mutational changes between two bona fide native bat coronaviruses identified by a lab in China that has a military background, ZC45 and ZXC21, everything is as predicted, in line with what we know about how viruses evolve in nature. The changes are consistent with what is expected when two lineages closely relate to each other evolutionarily, and the differences in their sequences are the results of random mutations. The ratio between the number of synonymous mutations and that of non-synonymous mutations is around 5:1. 4. But a comparison between SARS-CoV-2 and its purported close relative Rag13 shows a pattern that's completely inconsistent with natural evolution through single nucleotide substitution. The synonymous, non-synonymous mutation ratio is 44:1, wildly divergent from the 5:1 ratio expected from a natural evolution. 5. Comparing SARS-CoV-2 and Rag13. The whole spectrum of RNA sequence and amino acids have a very high similarity in every genomic region except in the S2, spike 2, half of the spike protein, which is very different. The S2 spike protein region doesn't follow the evolutionarily predicted and observed frequency of synonymous and non-synonymous mutation rates for coronaviruses. Although there are 90 nucleotide differences, there are only 2 amino acid substitutions rather than the 15 that would be expected. Thus there are far fewer amino acid substitutions compared with what should happen naturally. 6. A safe conclusion to the above points is that, between SARS-CoV-2 and Rag13, at least one is non-natural. If one is natural, then the other one must not be. It's also possible that neither of them came from nature. 7. The part of a virus that determines how good it is at infecting humans is the receptor binding domain, RBD, located in the S1 region of the spike protein located on the surface of the virus. The RBD dictates whether or not the virus can bind to the ACE2 receptor on the surface of human cells and thereby infect humans. This is the business part of the virus. If it's not right, it won't infect humans. If it is right, it will. 8. If indeed Rag13 is a fabrication, what are the bona fide bat viruses that are most closely related to the Wuhan SARS-CoV-2 virus and thus could be its parents? By comparing amino acid and nucleotide sequences, NERD identifies the 2 bat coronaviruses reported in the scientific literature, ZC45 and ZXC21, as the closest fits. ZC45 and ZXC21 are also remarkably similar to each other, with a 97% sequence identity. 9. A comparison between the amino acid sequences of the Wuhan SARS-CoV-2 virus as originally described and the ZC45 and ZXC21 viruses shows a remarkable identity in all but one crucial region. In the majority of the virus there is 95% amino acid sequence identity, but there is one crucial region where they are strikingly dissimilar, with only 69% identity. That is the S1 region of the spike protein that harbors the RBD. Given the very high identity in all other regions of the SARS-CoV-2 virus when compared with ZC45 and ZXC21, it is highly improbable that such a huge difference in just the S1 part of the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 could have arisen naturally over the time span in which they are supposed to have coexisted in nature. 10. The other striking result of a comparison between SARS-CoV-2 and ZC45/ZXC21 relates to another component, the E protein. The E protein is a structural protein of coronaviruses that can tolerate a large number of mutations without any negative impact on function. This is highlighted by the fact that even after just 2 months after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, mutations in the E protein of SARS-CoV-2 were identified. However, when comparing the original SARS-CoV-2 virus with the ZC45/ZXC21 bat viruses, they have a 100% identical E protein amino acid sequence. Given the high mutation rate observed in SARS-CoV-2, and in coronaviruses in general, and given the fact that mutations can occur anywhere in the virus genome, including in the E protein region, it makes no biological sense that the original SARS-CoV-2 virus would have a 100% identical E protein amino acid sequence to the ZC45/ZXC21 bat viruses. 11. Both the above basic biological observations strongly indicate that the only way that SARS-CoV-2 can be so dissimilar in the S1 region of the spike protein, crucial to human infectivity, yet identical in a far less crucial component such as the E protein, is through intentional design, genetic manipulation in the lab, and not by natural mutation and selection in animal and human hosts. 12. The above information strongly points to SARS-CoV-2 being constructed based on one or both of the two bat viruses, ZC45 and ZXC21, rather than the purported RAG13. Intention. Based on the above information, in Gematria's interpretation, the intention of these genetic manipulations would be to determine which amino acid changes are required in the RBD of bat viruses for them to gain infectivity in human cells. We do not share NERD's conclusion that the original SARS-CoV-2 was necessarily developed as a bioweapon, though there's no proof that it wasn't. It is equally likely to have been developed for study purposes and/or in order to help develop therapies or vaccines for current or future coronavirus pandemics. Shi Zhengli's role. There is also the question of Shi Zhengli's involvement. NERD poses a series of questions that must awaken suspicion in anyone familiar with the naked ambition that characterizes the virus gain-of-function area of scientific research. NERD asks, if RAG13 were a bona fide natural bat coronavirus discovered in the wild in 2013, as Shi Zhengli claims, given its star quality regarding the high potential to infect humans, why didn't she rush to publish its sequence at the time in a prestigious journal? After all, this is what she had done previously with other bat coronaviruses, RS-3367 and SHC014, which share considerable sequence similarity with SARS. Why did she wait until January 2020, when the public row began about the possible lab origin of SARS-CoV-2, before publishing the sequence? 2. NERD's implication is that, with speculation mounting about the possible lab origin of SARS-CoV-2, and the with being a chief suspect, she scrambled to come up with some sort of evidence to show that the virus had a natural origin and thus was nothing to do with her lab. That evidence consisted of the fabricated sequence of RAG13. Why 2013? If we accept NERD's conclusion that RAG13 is a fabrication, why would she and her collaborators claim it was discovered way back in 2013, 3, as opposed to more recently? NERD doesn't go into this, but Gematria believes that two possible reasons are, 1, to avoid awkward questions about why no live sample of RAG13 is available, enabling us to confirm its real existence. After all, 2013 is a long time ago. 2, to give sufficient time for RAG13 to plausibly naturally mutate and emerge as SARS-CoV-2, thus supporting the natural origin hypothesis for the COVID-19 epidemic. Why the delay? Gematria follows NERD in finding Shi Zhengli's delay in publishing the sequence of RAG13 very curious to say the least, and we understand why he regards it as highly suspicious. In our view, such work, once published, would be universally acclaimed as of immense public health import and potentially worthy of the Nobel Prize. If Rag-13 is real, it's not the kind of thing that a scientist of Shi's standing would normally keep under wraps for years. As any scientist can tell you, they are driven by the desire to be the first to announce a new discovery and to bask in the peer recognition and glory that this brings, unless, of course, secrecy was mandated because the plan was to use Rag-13 in some way that could not be disclosed, for example, as the basis for developing a bioweapon. Personal ambition apart, Shi Zhengli is at fault either way, if Rag-13 is real or if it's fake. If Rag-13 is real, Shi's failure to immediately report this discovery appears to be an act of extreme negligence that has recklessly endangered public health. In accord with proper scientific conduct in the public interest, Shi was morally obliged to promptly announce her discovery of Rag-13 and thus put World Health authorities on alert as to the possibility of this bat virus acquiring the relatively few mutations needed to convert it to a human pathogen, thus leading to a new SARS pandemic. If Rag-13 is fabricated, Shi would be guilty of scientific fraud, apparently committed to cover up an act of negligence in the form of her lab's construction and accidental release of SARS-CoV-2. In our view, the evidence presented above shows that there is an urgent need for a credible and independent international investigation into the origins of SARS-CoV-2 and the roles played by Shi Zhengli, the Chinese government, and the U.S. bodies that helped fund the virus research at the WIV, including the National Institutes of Health and the EcoHealth Alliance. Notes. 1. Some of our readers have voiced concerns at the fact that we are taking seriously certain evidence, for example this, about SARS-CoV-2's origins despite the fact that it is anonymously authored. While we support full transparency and accountability in science, we understand that powerful interest and strong emotions are involved in the current situation. Therefore we are not surprised that some commentators are afraid to put their names to their views. This may be particularly the case with Nerd, who, judging by his use of Chinese on his blog site, may be a Chinese citizen. In his article, he strongly accuses the Chinese Communist Party for responsibility for SARS-CoV-2's emergence. Because we want to get the evidence on SARS-CoV-2 out into the open and because we believe that scientists have as much of a right to stay safe as the rest of us, we will continue to publish scientific articles on the topic even when the authors feel that they have to remain anonymous. 2. The sequence of BT-CoV/4991 RDRP, a fragment of a bat virus genome, 370 nucleotides, was published by Shi Zhengli and colleagues in 2016, 4 years before Rag-13. As far as the fragment goes, it is identical to the Rag-13 sequence published in June 2020. However, this does not affect Nerd's argument that Rag-13 is a fake. As the commentator Simon says on Nerd's blog site, the existence of raw BT-CoV/4991 actually does not prove anything. The sequence is only 370 BP in length and everything else was still not published until January 27, 2020. Notably, if what they claim was true on the S protein, we should have already seen the RBD of Rag-13 being published before. We didn't. Therefore, we cannot rule out fabrication, manipulation for the rest of Rag-13/raw BT-CoV/4991. Without being able to rule out such fabrication, manipulation, the argument that Rag-13 is invalid as evidence for a natural origin of SARS-CoV-2 is still valid. It is a mystery as to why Shi and colleagues only published a tiny fragment of this virus genome. The procedure used to obtain the sequence of this RDRP gene fragment would have provided them with the entire sequence of the virus. Thus the rest of the sequence information appears to have been withheld. 3. In a 2016 paper, Shi describes the collection of samples from a mine shaft that led to the isolation of the bat virus BT-CoV/4991. Peter Daszak of the EcoHealth Alliance has stated on Twitter that BT-CoV/4991 is the same virus from the same sample as Rag-13.
Alright, thank you Nerd His Power for uploading the important information. I've covered it more in depth in my broadcast about this study, including the comments of scientists talking about this RATG13, the role it has in the SARS-CoV-2 virus, basically. So, everything is ready, basically. So my microphone is on there because we're going to have dinner.
Yes, all right.
And
That.
so that concludes my broadcast for now. I'm keen to hear your comments.
Here is a
They do that.
ingredient list.
Yeah, that's alright because it's biological, I can eat it. So they've sabotaged everything so that people have to pay a lot more money to get biological food. If you want food without GMOs that sterilize the global population, you can read about Roundup Ready soy, for example. Then you gotta pay a lot extra. And that's the way to make more money, basically. Problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic, and divide and conquer. So I'm gonna have to put my microphone on the floor because otherwise more things can fall off my desk here. But thank you all for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And kiss for single ladies who would like one. And see you all next time on Perfect Society. And tea tree oil is scientifically proven to be antiviral, so perhaps that's good to end with. And an air cleaner with an ionizer. I think that is definitely a good idea. Many people use colloidal silver, so I'm not the only one, to curb the spread. More about it in my previous broadcast. Thank you all for watching. See you next time on Perfect Society. Peace out.